Okay, hello, my name is Armando Almanza. I'm founder and president of Quintana Productions. Every time I say my name, I think people see this, but in reality, it kind of looks the same. Oh, hold it up. At any rate, glad to be here at the first annual EO Fake TED Talk. I told my wife I was giving a TED Talk, and she said, "Really?" I said, "No, not a real TED. Instead, it's a Fred Talk. It's a fake TED Talk." At any rate, today I'm going to talk about disruption. And believe me, there's nothing fake about it. I'm going to specifically talk about disruption in my industry, video production. What I went through and how I had to pivot in order to make my company profitable again. Now, we're all aware of the disruption that's going on in business today. We read the headlines, but when it's a recession, you can get through it with time. Things will get better. But when your industry is being disrupted, it's not going to get better. I know that. I lived it. I lived it 6 years ago. It was a really, really tough time for me. At that time, my business was getting pounded. I had no sales or very little sales. Profits were down. I was just getting smaller and smaller. I was shrinking to the point that I thought I was going to disappear. I didn't really know what to do. So I go back to Blockbuster. And we all know the Blockbuster story, where they had an opportunity to purchase Netflix, but they passed on that opportunity. And of course, we all know what happened with that. Well, I had a similar situation. Like Blockbuster, business was going great. We were going gangbusters. And all through the years, I had these great opportunities that were presented to my business. But I chose to ignore them. And for me, they were a nuisance. And I didn't jump on them. Like Blockbuster, things were going really well. Why would I change anything when I'm just making a lot of money? But then my industry changed. And at that point, I knew that I had to change my business model. Otherwise, I was not going to survive. Sometimes disruption comes from small startups. But for my industry, it was technology. The technology was getting better, and it was getting a whole lot cheaper. So basically, when you wanted to enter into my industry back in the 90s, you had to have a lot of money because the equipment was really expensive. But today, that's not the case. Today, anybody can open a production company with very little money, very little experience, and that's what I was facing. For the longest time, technology was protecting me because it was so expensive, and it was hard to enter my industry because of the high cost of entry. So just to give you a little bit of an explanation of how my industry works, we're not unlike an advertising company. Advertising companies hire talented people to create commercials. They make a lot of money doing that, but where they really make their money is in the ad buys. That's where the money is made. We're not unlike that. We have talented people who create content. We make money on the content, but we really make money renting our equipment to our clients to make that content. That was the business model for the longest time. At any rate, when I entered the business, my first camera cost me $70,000. By the time I put a lens on it, it was $100,000. I had other things that I needed, like a tripod and lights. And by that point, you were at $150,000 just for one system. Now you had to get an editing system, a graphic system. You're at $400,000. So you can see how high it was to enter my business. And this is before you hired anybody. You haven't even found office space, you haven't hired anybody. So it was really a great business to be in. Our clients paid a premium for our services because of the high cost of the equipment. So let me get to where I'm going here. So things got even better with the introduction of HD. Here's where the video comes. And yes, it's working. We started doing HD back in 2000. We bought our first camera. We were one of the first companies in town to enter the HD sphere. Our first show was for A&E. It was called Lost Dinosaurs of Egypt. Now you talk about barriers to entry. We can really charge a premium at this point. So at this point, life is good. We're doing well, and everybody's happy. But I first started seeing a hint of problems back in 1999 when the Blair Witch Project came out. That was an independent film that was shot with a high-8 camera, really, really cheap. And everybody in the industry, including myself, was really surprised that you could do that and that the low production values were acceptable. That was just unheard of. Cut to 2005, and Canon introduces their first SLR. This is a camera that can shoot high-end HD video, broadcast quality, for next to nothing. So now you can buy a cheap camera for nothing and shoot great video. Pretty soon, there were cheap cameras everywhere. In fact, we all have cameras in our pockets right now that are much better than the HD camera I bought in 2000 for $120,000. So you can see where we were going here. Things were going to get tough. At that point, things started getting really tough. My clients were pushing back on our budgets. All of a sudden, mom and pop shops were opening up everywhere. I was getting hit left and right in every direction. It didn't take much for these mom and pop shops to open up. They had very little overhead. It didn't cost them anything to open up, and I couldn't compete with them. So I was just getting so much pushback, and for the first time, we started losing money. So times were really, really getting tough. And then it really started getting tough when my competitors started going out of business. Atlantic Video, they were in business for 30 years, gone. Roland House, another 30 years, finished. Mobile Video, 40 years in business, out of the picture. I started really getting scared. Now you would think I would be happy that my competitors are disappearing, but that wasn't the case because I saw it as a domino effect. I saw that, am I going to be next? And then the final nail in the coffin was when I saw the top 10 industries that are dying, post-production companies are right in the middle. So what do you do when everything's falling apart around you? Well, the first thing I had to do was get rid of the small clients that we had that didn't have the budgets that we needed to sustain ourselves. These are the clients that would call up and say, hey, my son just shot this great video. I'm looking for something professional. Can you help us out? I've got an $800 budget. But that wasn't going to do it. So after getting numerous calls like that, what can you do? You can either cry or you can make a video. At any rate, things started to stabilize, and but the problem was I still needed the Hail Mary pass to save the business. So lo and behold, who comes to the rescue? Well, it was our clients. Remember, I talked about opportunity and passing it up. Well, for years, our clients kept coming to us asking me, hey, can I borrow one of your people, a cameraman, a producer, a graphic artist? At any rate, I always said no, because for me, it didn't work in my business model. It was better for us to use our people for our projects. If I gave them to somebody else and they used their gear, it was a low margin and it wasn't worth my while. It was a nuisance. But finally, in 2013, one of my clients came up to us and said, listen, we've got a staffing contract that we want you to bid on. So in 2013, I pounced on it. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have even touched it. But then I knew we had to do it. Now, I didn't know anything about staffing. I didn't know how much to charge, what it cost. I didn't even know how to put a proposal together. But we got that contract, we put the proposal together, got it, and years later, we now have 5 staffing contracts. So for us, that was the golden goose. That's what saved us. And all along, that was there, and I just never took advantage of it. Now we're in a much better place. We're bigger and better. We had our best year ever last year, and we have our new contracts. A new contract coming up next month, where we're going to provide staffing services and production services. So we're going to meld the two together. This promises to be a really lucrative contract for us, probably our best ever. So in closing, what I want to say is ventana means window, and we all know the old saying, when a door closes, a window opens. But I want to emphasize the point that you've got to jump through that window. And for years I was closing it. And the one time I jumped through it, I'm sure glad I did. It sure did save us. Thanks a lot.